I, 27 female, just lost my dog I had for 10 years and I'm devastated. Boyfriend, 25 male, thinks I'm being ridiculous. I recently experienced a heartbreaking loss. My dog, Alfie, who had been my loyal companion for 10 years, passed away unexpectedly. He was more than just a pet. He was my friend during some of the toughest times in my life. The grief I felt was overwhelming, especially since it happened so suddenly. Just 2 weeks ago, the postman accidentally left the gate open, and in a moment of excitement, Alfie dashed out and was struck by a car. I witnessed the whole thing, and it was one of the most painful experiences I've ever gone through. In the midst of my sorrow, I turned to my boyfriend for support. However, instead of comfort, I was met with comments that made me feel even worse. He kept saying things like, "It's just a dog, and why are you being silly? Just get over it." I found myself feeling more isolated in my grief. To cope, I even took a week off work, but my boyfriend seemed to think that was an overreaction. I started to wonder if there was a cultural difference at play, as he is Albanian and I am English. He had a dog he loved back home, so I thought he might understand my pain. But his stoic demeanor and lack of empathy left me feeling confused. I hoped he was just trying to be strong for me, even if his words were hurtful. As I reflected on our relationship, I realized that this wasn't the first time his comments had stung. He often expressed his own struggles, but seemed to disregard mine. One day, during a particularly vulnerable moment, he even got upset with me for not wanting to be intimate because I was grieving. That was a turning point for me. After discussing my feelings with friends and family, I decided to confront him about his behavior. I blocked his number after a particularly hurtful phone call where he told me he would never marry me anyway. I felt a sense of relief in taking that step, but it also left me feeling lost. In the days that followed, he tried to reach out multiple times, but his messages lacked any acknowledgement of my pain. Instead, they were filled with pleas for me to talk to him. I began to see a pattern in our relationship that I had normalized for far too long. He was selfish and dismissive, and I realized I had been worried about being insensitive to his feelings while I was still grieving the loss of my best friend. Thanks to the support and insight from others, I recognized that I deserved better. Alfie's passing, while tragic, opened my eyes to the truth about my relationship. I understood that I was not being unreasonable in my grief. I was simply mourning the loss of a beloved companion. In the end, I chose to prioritize my well-being. I returned to work where my manager noticed my distress and encouraged me to take the time I needed to heal. I realized that while I had lost Alfie, he had also helped me find my strength. I won't be posting again, but I hope everyone gives their pets an extra hug tonight. I recently experienced a heartbreaking loss. I had a dog who had been my loyal companion for 10 years, and when he passed away, I was utterly devastated. The bond we shared was incredibly special, and losing him felt like losing a part of myself. In the midst of my grief, I turned to my boyfriend for support, hoping he would understand the depth of my sorrow. However, I was taken aback when he suggested that I was being ridiculous for mourning so intensely. He seemed to think that my reaction was excessive and that I should just move on. This response left me feeling even more isolated in my grief. I couldn't comprehend how he could dismiss my feelings so easily. I tried to explain to him how much my dog meant to me and how he had been there through so many ups and downs in my life. But it felt like my boyfriend just didn't get it. I found myself questioning whether I was overreacting. After all, he had never owned a pet, so perhaps he didn't fully understand the bond that can form between a person and their furry friend. I wanted him to be there for me, to comfort me, but instead, I felt like I was being judged for my emotions. As the days passed, I realized that grief is a personal journey and everyone experiences it differently. I needed to allow myself to feel the pain of my loss without worrying about how others perceived it. I also recognized that my boyfriend might need time to understand my perspective. In the end, I decided to focus on my healing and remember the joy my dog brought into my life. While I hoped my boyfriend would come to understand my feelings, I knew that my grief was valid and I would navigate it in my own way. A 4.5 years later update. Am I the bad guy for not wanting my partner to know about my fandom blog? I've always been a bit of a nerd, diving headfirst into various fandoms since I discovered them. Running fan blogs, creating edits, writing fan fiction, and chatting with fellow fans have always been my happy place. It's where I express myself and connect with others who share my passions. For about 4 years, I was in a relationship with my partner, who I'll call Alex. While Alex knew I had special interests, she had no idea about my fandom blogs or the creative work I did. To be honest, I was worried about how she would react. She wasn't really into fandoms and often found them a bit cringy. One day, during a conversation about my broken camera, she innocently asked to see my phone's camera roll. I felt a wave of panic and declined, saying it was full of fandom content that I found embarrassing. When she pressed for a reason, I could tell she felt like I was hiding something. I understood her feelings, but I didn't want to share that part of my life. I thought, why must we share everything with our partners? I didn't see how her knowing would benefit either of us. I was embarrassed, and I feared she would be confused or judge me. Fast forward a few years, and I found myself reflecting on that time. I was young and naive, and I had just left home. I was also becoming increasingly isolated due to the pandemic and was in a controlling relationship. I realized that I was slowly losing touch with friends and family, and my partner expected me to cater to her needs while disregarding my own. When I posted my dilemma online, I was terrified of the backlash. I thought people would call me the bad guy for keeping secrets. Instead, the responses were overwhelmingly supportive, encouraging me to examine why I felt the need to hide my interests. It was a revelation. I learned that a good partner should appreciate and support who you are, not shame you for your passions. Eventually, Alex and I broke up. When she suggested we shouldn't be together anymore, I surprised myself by not pleading for her to stay. I realized we were on different paths, and it was time to part ways. After the breakup, I moved into a small studio apartment, which became a sanctuary for my healing and personal growth. Now, 4 years later, I'm in a much healthier relationship with someone who embraces my nerdy side just as much as I do. My current partner not only supports my interests, but also shares some of them, and we explore each other's passions together. I've even shown them some of my edits and talked about my fandom experiences without fear of judgment. Looking back, I'm grateful for the kindness and understanding I received from those online comments. They helped me realize the importance of being true to myself and finding someone who accepts me for who I am. I've learned that a good partner is genuinely interested in your life and passions, and I'm now living that reality every day. I want to share a little journey I've been on over the past few years, one that started with a secret and ended with a lot of joy. A while back, I found myself in a bit of a dilemma. I had this fandom blog that I poured my heart into, but I didn't want my partner to know about it. It felt like a personal space, a little corner of the internet where I could express my love for all things DC and a few other popular shows and movies. At the time, I was worried about how my partner would react. Would they think it was silly? Would they judge me for my interests? So I kept it under wraps, thinking it was for the best. But as time went on, I realized that this secret was weighing on me. I wanted to share my passions, but I was too committed to my quirky decision of turning off autocorrect years ago to even think about changing that now. Fast forward to today, and I can confidently say that keeping that part of my life hidden was a mistake. I took a leap of faith and finally opened up about my blog. To my surprise, my partner was incredibly supportive. They even shared their own interests, and we bonded over our mutual love for Star Trek. It turns out there's nothing quite like finding someone who gets you and your nerdy passions. Now, we're both fully embracing our fandoms together. We even decided to get matching Star Trek uniforms for Halloween, which has been a blast. It's amazing how sharing my interests has brought us closer, and I can't help but feel grateful for the journey that led me here. So if you're ever in a similar situation, remember that it's okay to share your passions. You might just find a partner who loves you even more for it.
Today I messed up by being the only one who laughed at something said in Spanish and outing myself on knowing Spanish. I work in a warehouse where the majority of my coworkers are Hispanic. It's just me, my warehouse manager Tom, and 2 others, Jeff and Bill, who are non-Hispanic. Most of the time, the conversations around me are in Spanish, and I only get to hear English when they need to communicate with us. When I was hired, Tom introduced me to the team, and I quickly realized I stood out. Being younger and the only non-Hispanic person, I knew I had to earn their respect. I was excited to share that I was married into a Hispanic family and had relatives who spoke Spanish. Plus, I was eager to use my second language skills. During my introduction, I overheard some comments in Spanish about how ridiculous it was that a young white boy was going to manage a group of Hispanic workers. Jeff and Bill, who were with me, shared their experiences of being teased for not speaking Spanish, which made me understand the dynamic better. Tom hired me because he knew I understood Spanish, and he wanted someone who could connect with the team. After the tour, Tom and I joked about how I would play along with their teasing, pretending I only knew a few words to get by. Fast forward about 9 months, and I had settled into my role as a team lead. The team respected me, but they often spoke their minds in Spanish, sometimes right in front of me. At first, I found it a bit disrespectful, but eventually, I learned to use it to my advantage. One day, while I was having lunch in the break room, someone started telling a joke in Spanish. I was half listening when the punchline hit me, and I burst out laughing. The room went silent, and everyone stared at me, puzzled. I had no distractions in front of me, so it was obvious I was laughing at the joke. Suddenly, one of my coworkers approached me, speaking Spanish and demanding to know if I understood them. I pretended to be clueless, but as he got closer, I could tell he was serious. He warned me that if they found out I was lying, there would be consequences. In that moment, I decided to reveal my secret. I responded in Spanish, and the room erupted in chaos. They realized they had been talking about me behind my back for months. After a lengthy conversation, they calmed down and found the whole situation hilarious. Now I have a lot more respect from my coworkers, and I happily converse with them in Spanish. It turns out that sometimes revealing a secret can lead to unexpected friendships and a stronger team dynamic.